Hello, hello. My name is Jack Van, and I am the property steward here at Camp Luthwald. And today, I wanted to talk to you about being a light to this world. As we approach this fall Halloween season, I think it's important to ask the question, what's the first thing that you think of when you think of Halloween? Is it trick-or-treaters? Is it pumpkin muffins? Maybe it's hay rides or I don't know, anything amongst this huge realm that the fall season can bring. I think one thing I want to focus on today is that of a pumpkin. Now, pumpkins are probably like the most common, fall activity to participate with, and that is carving pumpkins, making jack-o'-lanterns. And this process involves two components, right? One, scraping, gutting, and pulling out all the insides of the pumpkin. And then secondly, carving, crafting, and etching. That slow process then to meticulously design what the pumpkin actually looks like. In tandem, right, of course, with that first step of really removing what's not needed. And so what I want to focus on today is that process of creating a jack-o'-lantern, of inner transformation. And I think we can draw so many parallels from this process to that of our own, of inner transformation, and being a light of this world for God. When I think about these two components within crafting a pumpkin, pulling, scraping, and gutting, getting rid of the bad, I think about all those times that I grew in a skill or practiced, just being a better human in one way or another, but through a painful, challenging time. Something that immediately comes to mind is a trip down the Mississippi I took with my dad. 2 summers ago, my dad and I canoed the Mississippi from Minnesota all the way down to Louisiana in the trip of a lifetime. It was a blast. There's a bunch to that. But anyways, one specific day while we're canoeing, my dad and I had been fighting these whirlpools. And whirlpools are created from, different speeds of currents or back currents that happen, in kind of those side little areas of the river and whatnot. But anyways, we're approaching a whirlpool. And in order to dodge it, we had to go then between an island and the shore. And so we dodge these whirlpools, and we get then into this little, channel between the island and the shore that's so much calmer. But in the process then of dodging that whirlpool, our boat turned completely horizontally. And here I am, pushing as hard as I can, to get through this, paddling away, doing those hard things to get out of this situation, to further our skills, to, better ourselves in this situation. And my dad, having just got out of this hectic situation with the whirlpools, took a second to stop paddling, which in hindsight makes a lot of sense. My desire to keep going, to keep pushing, and to keep getting around this island then caused me to overextend, to reach into the water and then spill right into the river. I was so angry. And I just kept thinking of all the ways, I could tell my dad that what he did was wrong. But I think something that trip highlighted for me, and especially, moments like that, was just my ability to grow in my patience, to take a step back and to want to understand why that situation happened, how we could do it differently in the future, and not to rush to those, angry emotions that can so easily, I think, rise to the surface, but to be an emotionally regulated individual, to really pursue that, even though it was difficult and a really hard process. Amongst all that, there's also just that slow growing crafting and etching. And I think so much then of that process was my dad and I's conversations about having faith and what our purpose of this trip was. And so even through, not those hard, really difficult, monumental moments, but even that slow conversation, those guided thoughts from the Spirit leading us in conversation to ask ourselves, what are we doing this for? And how can we grow as men once we're done with this? And so much of what we came to was to have a faith like Job. No matter the circumstance, to praise God. And I think that wearing, a badge on your sleeve of having a faith like Job, like putting that etching and crafting onto your soul, that so you can be a mature, patient, praising God person in any situation, I think, is another part of that process of becoming a light of the world. And so here we are in this holiday season, engaging in all these fun traditions and carving and crafting pumpkins and baking fun treats and whatnot. I think I'd encourage you to ask yourself, what are ways that I am pulling, scraping, and gutting those things that don't need to be in my life? For me, it was my lack of patience. And what are ways I'm slowly growing, crafting, and etching, and building onto these positive traits I already have? What are ways, for myself then that I can continue to grow in having an unwavering faith? I think all these questions are just so important to ask ourselves. And as we are surrounded then with these traditions, I think it can help us remind ourselves that everything around us is so purposeful, that even in the pumpkin on Halloween, you can see inner transformation, and you can see the light of God shining to the world. And that can be you. Bye.